Welcome to another weekly S&P 500 analysis. Don't let the dark days in September to catch you off guard because the S&P 500 is in the process of establishing the next directional move. Looking at the index performance, we notice that the Dow Jones Transportation was the worst performer for the week, followed by the Russell 2000. They both lost almost 4 percentage points. Then the best performer is actually the Dow Jones Industrials. It only lost 0.75%. And the Nasdaq 100 lost 1.36%, and the S&P 500 1.29% on a week-to-date basis. And if we look at the weekly chart of the S&P 500, notice the range is only 83 points, a little bit under 84 points, and it lost 58 points. Like I said earlier, 1.29%. It did close below the 10-week moving average, and but it's still above the 40-week moving average, and printed an inside bar on a weekly basis, and it's still holding this higher low. And look at the Heikin-Ashi chart on a weekly basis for the S&P 500 and notice that there are a couple of weeks of indecision candles here. So we could making an attempt to either reverse back down or try to make another bull run at this 4600. So we'll be keeping an eye on the coming week to see what sort of Heikin-Ashi candle will be printed. And if we see a negative bearish candle, then we could be watching for the possibility of coming back down to this 4200 area. But if we see a bullish candle, we could see it try to push up to this 4600 level. Looking at the sentiment chart here, we did notice that the VIX is still under this zone here, this 2030 zone, sitting below 14 level. Even though we got a little bit of a pullback for the week on the S&P 500, we did see the put-call ratio went inside of this 0.75 and 1 zone here. So right now it's still sitting right on the edge of this 0.75. So the market participant are complacent, or well, at least not fearful, but they are also not always on because they are still a little bit cautious here based on the put-call ratio. And for the shortened week, we did see some selling pressure here. Notice that the up-down volume ratio was pretty much negative for the first 3 days of the week, except on Friday we got a 1.2 to 1 in favor of the up volume. And also the daily advance decline, there were more declining issues than advancing issue, except on Friday we just had 123 more advancing issue than declining issue. In addition to that, we also noticed there were more of stock making new 52-week low than 52-week high. So you can see the this week came up close to this 100 level. On Friday, there were 96 stock make new 52-week low versus 48 stock made 52-week high. Looking at the New York Stock Exchange cumulative AD line, there are no divergences. In the Nasdaq market, we noticed the up-down volume were negative all 4 days of the week, and also the advanced decline was negative as well. So definitely there were more selling pressure in the Nasdaq market than in the New York Stock Exchange. Also on the new 52-week low, it came up more than 200 stock making a new 52-week low, and versus only 42 making a 52-week high on Friday. So we are looking at more stock making new 52-week low once again in the Nasdaq market. And once again, we are noticing negative divergence here on the cumulative AD line for the Nasdaq market. See here, we just developed another negative divergence here versus the Nasdaq 100. So that is not a good sign. That means the Nasdaq 100 is being held up by those large cap tech stock once again. So from the sentiment and the internal, definitely we're noticing some negative bearishness coming into the market here in the month of September. So we're going to be monitoring to see how bad or would it be improving in the coming week. Here are the ranges for the ETF. Now looking at the diamond, the ETF for the Dow Jones Industrials, as you can see that the diamond here closed right above the upper range, the lower range of the expected move. It was outside of this weekly range before, Friday here. And basically it was sitting inside of this zone, this lower range of the expected move. And today it actually closed back inside of this range here. So for the coming week, we'd be watching the diamond to see would it be able to get back above this low volume zone here and into this resistant trend line. And if we could break this trend line, then look for it move up to this upper range of the weekly expected move, then get into this high volume zone here, and we could see it, maybe it will be able to chop back up toward this 355.83 level. But if it is unable to get above this low volume zone, instead it come down, then watch this trend line for potential support here, because then it'd be coming back into this small high volume zone here and see would it be able to find support. Now, if it doesn't find support on this trend line and break below it, then look for the lower range of the expected move to get tagged and possibly get into this low volume zone here. It has to hold above this low volume zone if it is have another possibility of moving back up. Otherwise, if it break below this low volume zone, then it'd be entering into this high volume zone here. Then we could see it move down to this composite point of control, this high volume node near 335 area. And looking at the spider, the ETF for the SP 500, notice that it just barely closed right at the lower edge of the lower range of the expected move. So for the coming week, we're going to be watching the price to see would it be able to stay inside of this balance area here and try to make a move back up toward this upper range and also toward this trend line here. Now, a lot of people thought this could be a support area here, and we did see a bounce here on Thursday. So now the question is, will it be able to hold this area here? So if it could move up and be able to come up to this upper range next week and possibly break this trend line, then we could be looking at the possibility of coming back up to this 455 area, fill this gap. But if it is unable to stay inside of this high volume zone here, instead come back down into this high volume zone, then look for the lower range of the expected move to get tagged and then possibly work itself down toward this 432 area here, at this edge of the high volume zone here. And look at the QQQ, you can see that the QQQ just finished inside of this weekly range here on Friday. So it came back into the weekly range. So for the coming week, we'll be looking at this upper range and the lower range here. So we can see that the lower range is right near this high volume zone here, this high volume node area. So the price that we'll be watching for is to see would it be able to come up to this trend line here and see would it be able to break this trend line, move up to the upper range. And if it does, then we could see it possibly the price move back up into this low, this edge here, this low volume area here, basically the upper range of this balance area. Now, if it is unable to come up and break this trend line and come back down, then we'd be looking at this higher volume area to see would it be able to provide some support. And that's basically in confluence with the lower range of the expected move for the coming week. If it doesn't hold, then look for the price to come down to this 357.5 area, this low volume zone here, to see would it be able to find support at this trend line, which is in confluence with this level at 357.5. Looking at the Russell 2000 ETF, the IWM, see that it came up to this upper edge of this balance area and got rejected. Now it's appeared that it might be tracing back down and trying to come down to this lower edge near this 160 level. So for the coming week, we're going to be watching the IWM to see would it be able to find support in this high volume area and come back up. Notice that it closed way below the weekly range here. So for the coming week on the IWM, we'd be watching to see would it be able to hold this support here and work itself back up to the upper range at this 187.80 area. But if it's unable to hold the support, then we'll be watching the IWM to come down to this lower range and also this low volume area here, somewhere around 180, and see would it be able to find support here. And if it doesn't, then we'd be looking for the price to come down, continue to come down toward this 175, 172 area, this trend line here. So we'll be watching for this potential trend line to see would it be able to hold support at this trend line. Looking at the yield curve here, we are noticing the yield curve, the 10 versus 2, is still negative, and it is still sitting at minus 0.72, so it's pointing to a recession. And on the 10-year yield, we are looking at a 4.25%. It is still sitting above this 4.25% area, so I'm still looking for this thing to come up to take out this high or the recent high here and move up to the 4.5% to 5%. And looking at the US dollar, we see the dollar continue to move up, and it is sitting at 105 level right now. So I'm looking for it to come up to this pivot high here, 105.82. And look at the dollar future. We are looking for the dollar to come up to this low volume zone here at 105.85 area. And for crude oil continue to hold up at this 87 level. I'm still looking for this thing to come up to this $90 level here at 90.47, this edge here. We'll continue to see the precious metal pulling back due to the strong dollar. And then silver, looking at silver is pulling back toward this 22 3/4 area. So I wouldn't be surprised in the coming week. We'll probably see a test down at this trend line here at 22.72. We also see gold is pulling back, so I wouldn't be surprised to see gold come down to this 1915 area here before it make another push back up. So this is a trend line resistance so far that we noticed. Gold kind of got rejected the last 2 times that it came up to these level here. So in summary, the market is basically in a pullback mode right now, and it could turn into something worse than a pullback, or it could turn back up and push it up to take out the previous pivot high here. And if you'd like to get more detailed analysis of the SPY, be sure to check out my Substack page, because I put out a daily trade plan on that. And also I put out a weekly analysis of the FANG stock. I will be posting additional content over this weekend on the SPY and the E-mini S&P 500 and also the FANG stock. So be sure to smash the thumbs up to give it a like and also help promote this video. And if you are new to this channel, click the subscribe to support this channel. Thank you for watching and stay safe.